So I asked this question on when I think it was the first Concordia video that I made for the end of October. And it was what happened on April 14th, 1986. So let's see what happened in the United States. I forget what. I remember that there was some alignment that Concordia saw. And I was like, well, if that was reflected in Ukraine, then what happened in 1986 in the United States? Which would be, I would imagine that's 13 days off. So if you look at an offset, the 13 would fall in the behind. So symbolically, you would say that, well, the United States is behind, even in a day, of Ukraine. So that's how I did that. I think it makes sense if I did it that way. So it said, on April 14th, 1986, one of the major events involving the United States was the launch of Operation El Dorado Canyon, the U.S. airstrike against Libya. Alright, interesting. The raid was ordered President Ronald Reagan in retaliation for Libyan-linked terrorist action. Obviously, the April 5th, 1986 bombing of the La Belle nightclub in West Berlin. I think I've heard of this before. It sounds familiar to me. Bombing of La Belle nightclub in West Berlin. Nightclub. Let me that reminds me of something. I wrote it down, so we're gonna bring that up. Although many sources mark the official action date as April 15th, offset of one day, Libyan local time, which is a day after the United States. Preparatory phase includes taking reviewing aircraft deployment underway on the night of April 14th. You could say that. The intent was to strike Libyan military and terrorist support infrastructure, including command facilities. Condemning the U.S. attack as a violation of international law. Global controversy. Gaddafi was seen by the U.S. as sponsoring and facilitating acts of international terrorism, which shaped U.S. policy decisions. When was this? 1986? Yeah, I remember Gaddafi was a big thing. I'll tell you a story about that. Gaddafi was a big thing in 2009, 2010. I remember I was in high school, and there was a big thing about him. The raid marked a rare incident of the U.S. directly bombing a sovereign nation in response to terrorism and the evolving nature of American military response during the Cold War era. The convenience of this date, April 14th, also underscores how actions may straddle calendar days due to time zones, refueling logistics in nighttime operations, hence the overlapping dates. Context and significance. If you meant a different event on April 14th, 1986, I just needed a major event. I was just wondering what was going on. But here's what I wrote in my notes. And I want to know what day this was. You remember the nightclub raid that happened this year with the DEA, and they did a raid and the people were sent to Colombia? I wonder what day that was. Was that April 14th too? I don't think it was April 14th. I think it was July. Actually, it wasn't April. Wait, no. No, I'm talking about that DEA raid. Nightclub raid in 2025. Committed collision attack outside the club, restricted on 19th July 2025 near a nightclub in East Hollywood, Los Angeles. From to a crowd. It's like about 30 people. Doesn't it feel like you're watching a movie right now? You're like watching all this, and it's like some some spy or something is looking at all this information, trying to figure out what's going to happen next. Doesn't it feel like that? On April 8th, April 20, roof clubs and nightclub in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic killed 236, none in the U.S. No, I'm talking about the raid. I forget where that was. The raid involving the DEA. April 27th. Oh, it was April 27th. 13 days off would be April 14th. Interesting. I didn't know it was April 27th. That's the day after the Chernobyl disaster in 1986. April 26, 1986. And that was on a Sunday. In 2024, April 26, 2025 would be Saturday. Interesting. The operation took place early Sunday morning, April 27, 2025, about 3:30 to 4 a.m. at an unlicensed underground nightclub in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Rocky Mountain Division. DA says about 114 people in the U.S. illegally were taken into custody. Scale for involvement, many agencies, large number of enforcement personnel. This suggests this venue was seen as a major enforcement target. This was one of the things that was strange to me. Immigration enforcement intersection. While the DA was the lead, a large number of those detained were primarily processed for immigration status rather than initially criminal drug charges. So what happened was they were sent back to Colombia. This was the whole Colombia thing. They were sent back to Colombia and they avoided prosecution. Which was very strange to me because Republicans and Trump, they want to be harder on crime. But instead, it was all about deporting them. And that was a very strange thing because the DA is a drug enforcement agency. It works with the DOJ. So to just pass them off like that and deport them is not something that aligns with neither the DOJ or the Republican rhetoric. So that's what caught my attention. And the CIA works Colombia works a lot with the CIA. So to let them do this, when Trump said, well, the DA and the CIA are pretty much going to work together, well, they didn't say the CIA, but when you do that, you're in CIA's territory, and it's like DA and CIA never get along with each other. So what's actually going on? That's what caught my attention when I heard about this. Raised concern about service members being associated as patron security with a venue under criminal immigration green suspension. The military was also involved. Yeah, because they had the military planes that deported them. Or escorted them, say that too, I guess. The raid got national attention and political commentary, including from high-level officials. Even though many were detained, as of reporting, few criminal charges appear to have been publicly filed immediately for many detainees. Many were placed in immigration custody, deportation. Few criminal appear to have been public for me. Alright, the exact club name was less emphasized. The main report the venue was described as an underground or after-hours club that moved locations. So it's kind of like a front. When you say move locations, it sounds like a front where you could have one club 1 week and then it moves over the next week, so it's like a front. They were moving around. Interesting. Didn't know that. But that's how a front would operate. Some fronts, not every front, but some of them. Whether all those detained were actually engaged in illicit activity, alleged drug trafficking, gang activity, remains to be seen in court records. Like Rich Venue, the building address, name, and whether any major criminal persecution resulted from this raid with court records. Would you like me to pull that up? Interesting. Politico, on April 29th, 2019, they posted U.S. planes bomb Libya on April 15th, 1986. Makes me wonder, why did you pick 2019 to report on that again? See, this is what was strange to me. It says soldier at a Colorado nightclub during an immigration raid charged with during an immigration. But that wasn't an immigration raid. That was a drug enforcement agency. They don't deal with immigration. Contained after federal raid in Colorado Springs. I'm looking at these images and the uniforms these people wear. It looks DEA, but it doesn't say. I think it is DEA. These guys are DEA. I'm pretty sure that's how they dress. I remember in college you would see pictures, and that's pretty much the uniform that they would use. Definitely the another clue that gives it away is their masks. They actually wear what are they called? Ski mask kind of looking things, and that's what they wear. That's the uniform. So it's not an immigration raid. That's not ICE. That wouldn't be ICE. But yeah, I found it very interesting how it was. Yeah, it was by the Drug Enforcement Administration. It wasn't ICE or anything. But it's interesting, it was April 27th, 2025. And when it said nightclub up here, it made me think. That was interesting. That was the connection I made. So let's see. What did it say? It says, notably the April 5th, 1986 bombing of the La Belle nightclub in West Berlin. West Berlin was United, well, it was on the side of the United States. It was capitalism. You had East Berlin, which was communism and socialism. They had a wall, and so West Berlin was the more affluent and productive, and that was West Berlin. And this was during April 5th, 1986. That would have been a few years before the Berlin Wall came down. So when it said nightclub, it involving the United States and the government within West Berlin, it made me think of that, and I was wondering what day that was. But yeah, it was April 27th, 2025. Interesting. Very interesting. Now, I don't know how that aligns with April 5th, but it was a retaliation of what happened in the bombing of... Hang on, let me read this again. How are we going to Libya and Berlin? How are those things connected? So let's read this again. The raid was ordered by the United States in retaliation for Libyan-linked terrorist actions for the bombing of the La Belle nightclub in West Berlin. So there was a bombing involving the Libyan government on April 5th, 1986 in a club in West Berlin. Question. Okay, this actually it aligns to what I said about West Berlin. The United States was in West Berlin, but why would the United States be involved with a nightclub in West Berlin, and why would the Libyan government attack it? That's the question. The raid was ordered by the United States. Right. Why would they even care about a nightclub in West Berlin. And why would they have all these bombers in U.S. Air Force? And it even says a U.S. Navy carrier base attacked aircraft from the Mediterranean. Why would they have all of that on a nightclub for Libyan? I don't know. Doesn't make sense to me. Tank refueling and like they were going out to all-out war for this nightclub. I don't know. You guys can figure that out. But that's a nightclub, United States, immigration, another country. I mean, I'm seeing the same development here, minus the air. Well, we got airplane, we got the military involved. We got airplanes that deported them. We don't have aircraft carriers, but we got. So it's very interesting how that connects. Very interesting. So yeah, guys, I'll end it here. If you guys saw anything in there, feel free to do your own research and see if you can come up with any answers. Try not to put them on my comment section because that's a lot for this, and if people didn't see the video, they'd be like, why is this person only saying stuff like this on the comment section? But if you do have any information, you can send it to my email address, which is comicon at support@comicon.store, which is also on comicon.store, the website that I have. And yeah, we can also send requests for videos and such for me to look at, so you don't have to put them in the comment section. And it's completely anonymous. I won't use your name if you do that. But if you feel unsafe using an email to do that, that's okay too. That's why we got Q&As. It's gonna do that. Although I might not be able to do events that way. I will have to stumble upon the events myself. But anyways, you know what I'm saying. So I'll end it here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.